Alright guys, welcome back to another video. It's your man Jay Will. So this is the Asus Zenfone 5, and the cameras on this device really intrigued me. First of all, the camera can shoot at 1080p at 120 frames per second, either slow-mo or regular. And when you see this footage, I know that you're going to say, whoa. So first thing is, YouTube cannot handle, you can't see in the listing of 1080p at 100 frames per second. It's only going to show you 60 frames per second, but you should be able to see the difference in the quality. That's the first disclaimer. Now, have you ever seen a 49 megapixel photo or 37 megapixel photo? Well, in this video you will, but again, I don't know how well YouTube can show you these things just based on what it's producing. So I would say get on your best monitor, watch it on the best screen you can, and then you can understand how nice this footage actually is. So with disclaimers gone, please check out some of these photos, and I guarantee you, and the footage, you're gonna say, whoa, this phone has fantastic abilities. And I'm kind of surprised that more people are not hyped about this phone. So in the settings, they have what's called super resolution. And in that, you can shoot, let me tell you exactly, you can shoot 43 megapixel photo, 49 megapixel photos, 37 megapixel, 33, 32, 24, 21, at all different aspect ratios. So yes, I know it's not actually the phone itself, it's the processing. You know, I remember how Google was able to do the great stabilization on the Pixel. Think of it that way, because these cameras are punching way above their weight class for sure. So the Asus Zenfone 5, in this video we're going to look at high resolution photos, some regular photos, and then 1080p video in widescreen, and also 1080p at 120 frames per second. This is going to shock you. It's your man Jay Will. I hope you enjoy. Alright guys, it's your man Jay Will. So this is the Asus Zenfone 5. It's a very windy day out. Gotta make sure I'm holding the camera right because there's microphones all over it. But right now, when you use this camera, it chooses the best settings for you. And all I did was hit record, and it's recording at full HD at 120 frames per second. So I didn't do anything to the settings. This is my first time using the camera. So this camera also has wide angle lens, so I'm gonna switch to that right now. So here's the wide angle lens at full HD at 30 frames per second. Now remember, I just said when you use a recording on this thing, if you don't make any adjustments, it'll choose the best settings for you. Now, windy day out, remember? And so keep that in mind, but the quality from what I can see through the viewfinder is absolutely great. One bad part about the camera, I can tell that if you want to use the wide angle cameras, it's not like LG. You have to actually switch it manually. So you have to stop recording and then switch it to just the back and forth between the two. So let's switch back to a regular angle. So I can definitely tell you that recording at 120 frames per second in 1080p is absolutely sweet. There's not a lot of cameras that can do that. So again, this is just in the settings. After I got to looking through the camera, I can see that that's the default setting, but you can change it. So 120 frames per second is absolutely sweet. I mean, you can catch these cars going by. Take a look at some footage here. You can see how the colors reproduced. Got to be careful not to cover the microphones on here. I don't know if I've ever used 120 frames per second 1080p, but this camera is sweet, man. Again, it does record in 4K and 1080p at 60 frames per second, but I think this 120 frames per second is a sweet setting. I'll check the stabilization, but I don't believe that this camera will have any problems with stabilization. I'm actually walking right now. You tell me what you think about the camera, just walking. "120 frames per second is sweet, folks. I really like the wide angle shots, but I wish I could change the wide angle from within the actual, like if I'm recording. So just doing some walking here, but this is an extended look at the rear camera on the Asus Zenfone 5. Sweet camera.